What's up, everybody? This is Danny Thompson from AroundTheAssociation.com, and this is Around the Association podcast, the most valuable player preview edition of the podcast. So before I get into it, follow me on Twitter at Danny, DANNY, the number 3, Thompson. Also, check out the page and follow the page, which is Around the Association. Also, the Facebook page, which is Around the Association, the radio, and don't forget to chase the pod, to follow the podcast, which is at Spreaker, iTunes, Spotify, and a whole multitude of other places that you can listen to the podcast on a regular basis because, this is the best home for all things all NBA. So the NBA awards have always been about the end of the season, about who is the most valuable player. And James Harden finally won his MVP trophy last year in deserving fashion. Harden led the Rockets as far as they possibly could last year, especially with Chris Paul's injury. The Rockets were literally one game away from making the NBA Finals. We're going to say a Chris Paul hamstring away from potentially breaking up the Golden State dynasty out in the Bay Area. But Harden once again put up numbers that were just phenomenal. It wasn't the triple-double Russell Westbrook put up, but the dominance of Harden all season, especially when Chris Paul was hurt, showed how valuable James Harden is to the Houston Rockets. So the real question is, can Houston repeat? Can Harden repeat as the MVP, which is something that's not exactly the easiest task to do. But Harden is one of the leading MVP candidates. Why? Because James Harden makes so much of an impact on the offensive side of the ball. Besides being a dynamic scorer, he's also one of the best playmakers in the NBA. His assist totals have been, insanely high the last couple of years. Why? Because Harden does so much with the basketball in his hands. Now, the assist numbers won't be what it won't be the 10 assists he was averaging a couple of years ago because a guy like Chris Paul handles the ball so much. But with Harden now being more off ball, we saw the dangerous combination those two do, especially when they're on the floor late in games, and Harden still handles the ball when Chris Paul's not on the floor. So when you have Eric Gordon with Harden at times, Harden is the main playmaker, which allows Harden, who draws more fouls in the NBA, to get to the line for easy baskets. And at the same time, even if he's not shooting the ball well, if he's hitting free throws, that has a better chance of him getting in rhythm and also staying hot. The Rockets have a humongous expectation this year. They got added offensive weapons like Carmelo Anthony and Brandon Knight to this team, and Harden's going to might not have to take much more of an offensive responsibility. But now with losing defenders like Luke Baramute and Trevor Ariza on the perimeter, it's going to have to force Harden to become even more engaged defensively. I'm not sure how it's going to work, but if Harden can somehow find a defensive streak that we haven't seen in him in a very, very long time, he might win his second MVP award. But let's look at some of the other candidates around the league. Yes, LeBron James is out in Los Angeles. Yes, LeBron James might not have all the talent he has. He doesn't have Kevin Love as an all-star around him. But if this is the best chance for LeBron James to win MVP, this is the best chance to do it. When you have a new identity in a new location and a bunch of young kids, a mix of veterans and old and younger guys. If LeBron James can somehow put this all together in 1 year and the Lakers become very, very competitive, James is going to put the numbers up. The real question is, when you have a guy like Rajon Rondo and Lonzo Ball as your point guards, neither one are exactly the best shooters in the NBA. It starts to wonder how much of the ball LeBron James is going to have. We all know over the years LeBron James has the ball more than anybody else in the league. He doesn't want to be as ball dominant and wants to be much more of a team guy this year. So we'll see what this turns out. But if the Lakers are a 50-win team this year, which potentially could happen in the West because it's so wide open, you can't leave LeBron James off the MVP award list. Damian Lillard out in Portland. Lillard finally got a lot of respect from people that he should have got it from a long time ago. And Damian Lillard put up numbers last year were just Damian Lillard-like numbers. It's just now that he's now on a national stage, and Portland is on the cusp of trying to break through in the Western Conference. Lillard has that ability to move people and move his team into higher standings and rankings. Now, the problem is the Western Conference is so loaded, and Lillard has these moments. He gets a stretch of about maybe 15 games where he just goes completely nuts. And if he does it at the right point in time, the Portland Trail Blazers are going to elevate themselves up in the Western Conference. I compare Damian Lillard hot streak to like when you're playing Mario, old school Mario, and he gets that star, and you're about to go through it. He gets the star, and he just starts running through everything. That's Damian Lillard for about a stretch, about 12 to 15 games throughout the season, where he just literally just has a period where he just goes nuts. It's like Damian Lillard can't be stopped. Now, speaking of guys who can't be stopped, you have two guys on two different conferences that are the most unstoppable players in their position. You have Anthony Davis of the New Orleans Pelicans, and you have Giannis Antetokounmpo of the Milwaukee Bucks. So when you look at Giannis, the Greek freak is a freak. It's like you look at him now. It's like, where was this kid like 4 years ago when he was in the league? He wasn't he wasn't as muscular or completely cut as he is now. What does that do for him? Giannis just runs everywhere on the floor. He is the best playmaker in Milwaukee. He's also the best scorer. He's also the best pure rebounder, the best defensive player they have on this team. It's how far that Giannis can take Milwaukee is the real question. In the Eastern Conference, which is now wide open, with LeBron James, like I said, switching conferences, Boston is getting their All-Stars back. Toronto added Kawhi Leonard. Where can Giannis take this team? This team has not been out of the first round in a very, very long time. They have the talent around him with Chris Middleton. You have Eric Bledsoe. You have now Brook Lopez. You have Malcolm Brogdon. Thon Maker. They have talent there. But Giannis has to elevate this team to a brand new level. And when I say a brand new level, we're talking past Philadelphia. We're talking into that second seed conversation. If Giannis puts those numbers up, we're talking. I think he could put up 27, almost about 10 rebounds, and about 7 assists a game. We're talking about a guy who's going to be a complete MVP candidate, completely all the way around. And now Anthony Davis, now New Orleans, has an even bigger responsibility. His numbers were really good last year with DeMarcus Cousins. They started to figure things out thanks to Rajon Rondo, but they started to figure things out on how things are supposed to work with those two together. Boogie goes down with a season-ending Achilles injury. It changes everything. Changes everything. You thought the Pelicans wouldn't be as good as they were, but Davis even played at a higher level than when he was already playing. We all know how good Anthony Davis is. To me, he's the most talented player in the league right now, and is one of the few guys in the league that can't be stopped when he's on his game. Now he has to do it for a full 82-game season without Rondo, without Cousins, and if Jrue Holiday can maintain that same level of play he had last year, the Pelicans won't miss the playoffs. Those two guys alone won't miss the playoffs. If Davis, who's going to have to play more center, becomes much more of a defensive presence that he already is now, on top of the scoring and rebounding, there's not a reason why this guy's not the MVP of this league. Going further, Kawhi Leonard's in Toronto. Kawhi is now healthy. If he's completely healthy and engaged, the Raptors are dangerous. Leonard is the best two-way player in the NBA. The guy knows the claw with the biggest hands in the league, it seems like, can pretty much guard anybody in the league. And yes, that includes Kevin Durant. Yes, that includes LeBron James. There's not a guy in the league who can guard anybody more one-on-one than Kawhi Leonard. When you have him healthy, active, and ready to go, on top of Lowry, on top of Valanciunas, on top of Ibaka, that Raptors bench, Leonard has the best opportunity to win the MVP. This might be his best chance to win the MVP, his first MVP since he's been in the league, because he has a chance to make a tremendous impact on a franchise and change the culture, especially for new head coach Nick Nurse, because when you have a top 5 guy, it makes things so much easier to coach, especially one that does not draw a lot of attention in certain ways. Out east, Boston gets back Kyrie Irving. I think his MVP candidacy is kind of stagnated by the fact that Boston's so good, Boston's so loaded. Gordon Hayward's not coming back. It's going to take a while to get all these guys together. Don't forget Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. But Irving, he has a lot to prove. He wants that max deal, and he's going to get it. The question is, will the Celtics give it to him in the offseason? Yes, he committed to Boston long term, but as is recording, Kyrie Irving still has not signed any extension, and they hadn't even talked contract yet. So with Irving's desire to stay, and Boston still hasn't cut the check, I'm not sure where his future is. So Kyrie has to play out of his mind just so people can realize that Uncle Drew is a top 5, the top 7 player in the league, which means you're cutting almost a $190 million check if you're in Boston's case, or at least the maximum from any team trying to chase Kyrie Irving. Speaking of point guards in the NBA, and also a situation where guys can be splitting votes, you fly back out to the team that's called the Golden State Warriors, and you have two guys who in most years are 2 MVP candidates, but the problem is they share the same spotlight. Kevin Durant and Stephen Curry play on the same team. Durant has been phenomenal defensively, and he deserves some Defensive Player of the Year thoughts and considerations. But let's just be real. Kevin Durant's still the most dynamic offensive player in the league. On top of that, you have Steph Curry's the best shooter in the league. The Golden State Warriors, when healthy, are going to win 65 games easily. As long as none of those guys get hurt, or I say Durant, or I say Curry, or I say Klay Thompson, or even Draymond Green, if any of those 4 guys don't get hurt, no matter what DeMarcus Cousins does, or when he comes back, this is still a 65-win team without Cousins. MVP-wise, it would have to take one of those guys getting injured. Curry had a great stretch when Durant was hurt last year. When Curry's not on the floor, Durant plays out of his mind. It's going to have to take one of the two to be out for an extended period of time for the other one to win the MVP. I don't see neither one of the 2 guys win the MVP because I think those 2 guys cancel each other out. Sleepers and dark horses, watch Victor Oladipo and Donovan Mitchell in Utah and Indiana. Guys who have really, really good seasons last year. Oladipo was an all-star. Mitchell wants to get to that level. You have those 2 guys that are up there. Don't forget Russell Westbrook in Oklahoma City. Yes, I didn't mention him at the top of this show, but Russell Westbrook has the potential for doing something nobody's ever done. Again, that's become a guy who's had 3 consecutive years and 3 consecutive triple-doubles average for the entire season. So there's a lot going on with that situation, a lot going on there. Watch John Wall in Washington, watch Kemba Walker in Charlotte. Walker's a free agent. Guys who are trying to get paydays always have big numbers. And if Walker can carry this team to the playoffs, why not give Kemba an opportunity, a couple looks? Outside of those guys around the league, those are your major MVP candidates around the league. If I miss somebody, I know. There's too many guys in the league that's going to have tremendous seasons, but there are a lot of circumstances why guys can't win MVP. So here's my choice for the MVP, and it comes down to this. It's going to come down to 3 players. I forgot Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid in Philadelphia. Kind of the same thing with Durant and Harden, Durant and Steph Curry out in Oakland. Is that Simmons and Embiid will cancel each other out. If Ben Simmons develops a jump shot and get to be an 18, 19-point a game scorer on top of the rebounds and assists, and Embiid, who will finally be healthy for a full season, it's going to have to take one or the other to kind of like cancel the other one out. I'm not saying a major injury because Simmons is a guy that doesn't have to score all the time, but Embiid would have to literally go to 25 and 12, 25 and 13 a night consistently for 82 games to be an MVP candidate, in my opinion. So, like I was saying earlier, who is my choice for MVP? So, we're really down to 3 guys. I think Anthony Davis is one for the New Orleans Pelicans. You're also looking at James Harden out in Houston, and you're looking at Giannis out in Milwaukee. My choice for the MVP for 2018-2019 will be Anthony Davis in the New Orleans Pelicans. Davis has a history of being injured. Yes, we know this. He played over 70 games last year. If Davis hits that 70-game number again this year, the Pelicans only will not make the playoffs, but Davis will be the best player of this league once again. And the whole question is, how far does New Orleans get the playoffs before we start talking about trading Anthony Davis once again this summer? So my choice for the league's MVP award will be Anthony Davis. It's not much of I'm not going to say much of a no-brainer. I think a lot of the guys who we think of as the MVP candidates are in different situations. Unless LeBron James wins 55 games in Los Angeles and leads them to a 55 to 60, almost 60-win season, I can't see LeBron James getting it no matter how good the Lakers are. I think if Davis gets his team to around the same number of wins, 46, 47 they had last year, why not give it to a guy who lost an all-star, lost his starting point guard, and at the same time puts up numbers like he does? I don't think anybody's going to have a better season than Anthony Davis. So, tell me what you think. Leave your opinions below. Tell me if I'm wrong. Follow the page, which is Around the Association, on Facebook. Follow the website with RallyAssociation.com. Subscribe to both. Friend it, pass it along. It's free of charge. Also, follow the show on Spreaker, on Spotify, on iTunes. Follow it everywhere you possibly can. Also, follow me on Twitter at Danny3 Thompson on Twitter. It's not NBA season. We're getting ready to tip off games on Tuesday night, and it's going to be something phenomenal. So, for myself, at RallyAssociation.com, this is Danny Thompson. We'll catch you guys later. Peace.